Hello. So we're now in chapter 11. It's talking about termination of employment. So in this chapter, we should learn the differences between the laid off or temporary laid off and the termination. And also we talk about compensation on termination. We talk about checklist for termination of employment. And then there's examples for record of employment in your textbook. So you should understand for each block in your record of employment what it stands for. Then the last part, we're talking about retiring allowances. So for this video, I'm be focused on the retiring allowances calculation. The rest of the parts, I hope you can read the book or just read the PPT. I just quickly go through that, the details, or not details, but I just quickly go through this compensation or termination record of employment, but we'll be more focused on the calculation. So for termination, the most important things you need to remember is for 7 consecutive calendar days without working or earnings, and the salaries falls below 60% of regular weekly and servable earnings, then you need, that means a record of employment paper will need to be issued by the employer. And then we need to know the difference between a temporary laid off or a termination of employment. So temporary laid off is that the employee are expected to come back to work within the 13 weeks. If it's not coming back within 13 weeks, then is deemed as a termination of employment. For termination, for checklist for termination of employment. And then there are a whole bunch of lists you need to covered, including the final date of work, payments due on termination, pay new of notice, severance, retiring allowances, vacation pay. There are a whole bunch of listed is on page 118, so you can take a look at that. And then our textbook shows a record of employment examples. And then they are contents for the record of employment from block 1 to block 22. So we have a detailed explanation. Lastly, I want to focus on the retiring allowances. So when the employee has been terminated from the company, they receive a severance package. There is a policy saying that we could transfer eligible retiring allowances to the employee, RSP or RPP on behalf of the person. The amount allowed to transfer $2,000 for each year or part of the year of employment prior to 1996. $1,500 for each year of employment prior to 1989, in which none of the employer contributions to pensions or saving plans were vested. So then we'll go to the book. We could see those assessment questions. The first one, give the example to make it easier. An employee being terminated who has been employed for 35 years may elect to have termination pay transfer to an RSP without being taxable upon. So they'll ask you to make multiple choices. So when we see this question, we're assuming we're now in 2020. So that means employee has been working for employment 35 years. I mean, you use 2020 divided by 25 years, it should equal to 1980, right? So this employee started employed with you from 1985. Then how much if he has been terminated in 2020? So how much can be contributed or can be directly contributed to RSP? The policy was saying that there are 2,000 per year or part year of employment prior to 1996. So 1995, 1985, 95, you can contribute $2,000 per year. From 1985 to 1988, contribute $1,500 per year, right? So from 1985 to 1995, including the 1985 years, their total is 11 years. You have to use your 11 years and that $2,000. For 1985 to 1988, so it's 85, 86, 87, 88. So there are 4 years. You use 4 times $1,500. So you add up step 1 and step 2. That is your total contribution. It's your total RSP transfer without being tax additive. Okay, so that's this calculation. So for our first questions, that will be combined step B and C, right? But for your question 12, is saying an employee being terminated who has been employed for 15 years may elect to have termination pay transfer to RSP without being taxable. So 15 years, we use the same calculation right there. If it's only working for 15 years, we use 2020 minus 15 equals 2005. So what is the total amount? That means it's 0, right? So please remember there is no longer transfer $2,000 per year to RPP or RSP for 1996 or later. It's really important. So when you see those kind of calculations, you always remember, do not include 1996 or do not include the 1989. Okay, this is a calculation for retiring allowances.